Welcome to Open Source Spotlight. We invite open source authors and ask them to show the tools they're working on. Today we have Tobias. Hi, Tobias. Tell us a few words about yourself and the tool you want to show us.
Thanks for having me. Hi, I'm Toby. I'm an open source developer and data science machine learning freelancer, focusing on natural language processing mostly. Um, and yeah, from my freelance work in the last 2 years, mainly around large language models, um, I saw certain challenges around managing like complex multi-step applications based on these large language models. Um, and I didn't see any um, available solutions that I thought were good. So I started building my own tool, and that's what we'll talk about today. Like it's called Promptmage, and it should help manage multi-step applications based on large language models. I will jump into the
hmm
details in a second. I'll probably just share my screen
hmm
now and see if that works as expected. So I just share everything. So now you see the
It's
website,
super
right?
tiny.
It's still tiny.
It's very tiny. Like I cannot
Okay.
see anything.
Do you see it
Can you
now?
make it? No. Like I have
What?
a small laptop screen and you have probably a very large screen.
I mean, for me, it's large now. Wait.
Maybe you can share only a part of screen. We will cut this out, don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is I wanted to have, like, I want to jump between terminal, VS Code, and browser. So I need to share the screen somehow and not
Maybe you can share a different screen?
what does it do? Yeah, try. So what does it do now? Still tiny?
It's super tiny, yeah.
Even if I zoom,
If you zoom in,
for me, it's like, you see the website, you see a browser with a
yeah,
website now?
but like I think the playground part does not zoom in
Ah,
actually.
yeah, but this you see now. This
This
is
is
zooming.
better. Okay, this
Ah,
is
yeah,
good.
okay,
Yeah.
wait, this is a screenshot, so this is
Okay,
not
so
properly
this is good
zooming,
now.
but it's like just a
hmm
that was just a starting point.
But if people need to be able to read something,
No, they
yeah,
don't
now
need
it's
to read
better.
something here, but
Okay.
this is better, right?
And this one also, can you please make it maybe one more time? Yeah, good.
Like this. And wait, then I also do the terminal a bit larger, even though we don't probably need it that much.
One more time. Yeah, great.
Okay, so uh, okay. So we can just jump in here, and then I switch to the terminal to the VS
Yeah,
Code
we
in a
can
second.
continue right now.
Yeah, cool. Cool. So now that you see my screen, yeah, I mean this is the website documentation, but let's jump into the Visual Studio Code and look at an example like how it is applied. So Promptmage is basically a Python package that helps you structure the workflow of your LLM application, and then also runs a browser interface to interact with it. And we see that also in a minute. So this is like the most minimal example you can basically do, which is you have the Promptmage instance that is registering your workflow, has a name, and we see later some other properties or some other attributes. And then your application should be composed out of these kind of steps that are decorated with the step decorator of your Promptmage instance. And the steps also have names, and they have prompts and some other attributes. And then steps are just functions basically, and they take some input, usually a string or a list of strings. If they have a prompt that is managed by Promptmage, they take a prompt object, and what they should return is like a Mage result, it's called at the moment, or a list of those. These are the objects that Promptmage also manages. And within the steps, basically, you can do whatever you want as long as you return the proper objects. Here, the answer part would be, for example, an LLM call, and then you return the results. The result should know which step to do next. So you could do some agentic workflows there and pass multiple outputs. Yeah, so that makes it pretty flexible. That is the most minimal example. Just to give you an overview, you can also find it on the website documentation. Let's jump to a more complex example, and I'll probably explain the idea a bit. So this is, and we will also look into it from the front end side. So this is a small 3-step application that extracts facts from some text, runs some fact checks on all of these facts, and then summarizes the results into a report. So I mean, that does not do real fact checking. It just asks the LLM to if the fact is true or something. So yeah, so we have the Promptmage instance here again. It's called fact extraction, and it has some available models. This is something that's just for your convenience, basically. It just doesn't do anything. It's just managing what you can access through the Promptmage instance later. And then we have the steps. It's basically an extract facts step. It has a prompt that's called extract facts. This is the first step, and then it gets some article input and some focused topic or something. And then there's like an LLM call to OpenAI, and then yeah, bit cleaning, return a list of facts of these Mage result objects that contain facts. And the next step you see is the check facts step. And we move on there, right? Then it's the check fact. It also has a name and a prompt, and it returns one single object to the summarize step, and it's like just the list of the facts. So here you see this is so this step operates on each of the elements of the list returned by the previous step. We will see this later in the execution graph in the browser. I just want to walk you through here first. And then the last step is a summarize step that basically is a many-to-one step, which collects all the previous steps if they are a list, and runs it on the full list. So yeah. So this is then the summary step, and this returns some result, and it has no next step, so it will terminate here. Yeah, so this is the example application. This is like the format how you would write your application.
Where do you configure prompts? So here I see that you have prompt name, but I don't see the prompts themselves. Like, are they in a separate file?
Yeah, so it's actually a good question. So prompts, if you register them like this with a prompt name, then every function, like every step function, takes a prompt parameter that is a prompt object, and the prompt object is completely managed by the Promptmage application when you run it now, and it will be stored in the Promptmage local or remote database, and version controlled there, and you can iterate there. Yeah, that's
So
actually
it's not
a perfect
in
question.
YAML or...
No, it's not a YAML. It's, I mean, the local database is by default a SQLite database, and the remote database is Postgres or whatever you run there, or also can also be SQLite depending on your setup.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not YAML.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excellent question. So let's run this flow. I mean, I call them flow for now. Not sure if this is the best name forever. So go to the terminal, and we run it like if you have it installed in your environment, then you have the Promptmage entry point command available, and you do Promptmage run, and then you point to your Python file that contains the flow, and then you run it. I mean, I run it with Poetry here because that managed my environment, and then it runs it, and we see Promptmage instance starting. And now we can go to localhost in this case. Let's see which browser it picks. Yeah. So it started the web interface for Promptmage. Here we have some things. So we have the graphic user interface. We go there in a second. Then there's like API docs. This is basically for every step and for the whole flow, and for some other convenience functions, you get fast API actually by default that you can access and that you can interact with. Okay, then there's the API and there's the website. So yeah, let's go to the graphic user interface. So we see It's not working well with the scaling. That's better. So we have we have here available flow, so we could have multiple flows at the same time. We see fact extraction is registered here. We have 3 steps, and it was run a few times because I tested it. So we can jump into the flow, and then what we see is we see like the main input part of the application, and then the different steps. And each step has basically configurable properties that we specify in the function. Like it has a model and it has a prompt, and we can get different prompt versions, and you can see the prompts here and change them. It's a bit scrambled because it's not intended to be run at this resolution, but still. And then we see the result at the end. So if I now get some, get some article, I'll put it in here. So we have some text, and then let's say stability is our focus. Now we can run the whole function and the whole flow in the browser, or from the browser, better. And it will run it through each step. We see it's like got like 5 results. Then it run the fact checking. We get here results. We run the fact checking and the summarization. We got a result. And we see here how it executed. So it extracted 5 things, 5 results in the extract step, and then the fact checking on each step, and then at the end it summarized everything. So, and now we could go in there and say like, let's look at the results here. I mean, it's not a bit large because of the resolution, but we could go in and say like, we don't like the prompt. We need to change something. Or let's look at the summarization prompt. We have the prompt here, and we can say like, into short report. That's a bit, I mean, it's not a short report, right? So I'd say into of 5 sentences of the most important points or something. We can even save the prompt and run it again on the same inputs.
Does it rerun the whole thing or only
No,
the
it just runs this step now. Yeah, it just runs this step now. And we get a shorter report, right?
Mhm.
So that's how we can iteratively improve on the prompts, especially if you have like depending steps, right? If you say like, I want to change how facts are checked, and it influences my summary or something.
And I noticed that at the first step, it extracted 5 things, and then like for each of these things, it ran it in parallel. Can you please go back to the code? I don't remember how you, like, did you return a list at the first step?
Yeah, the first step returns a list.
Okay. And that's why if you return a list, then it executes the other steps in parallel, right?
I mean, yeah, it executes the following steps in parallel of each of the elements, unless they have like a many-to-one option, which is then used to collect it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, yeah, it's a bit difficult to keep so it has some rough edges, yeah, the execution graph stuff, because keeping it flexible and at the same time kind of stable is a bit of a struggle. So this is basically the main playground interface, so you can interact with your workflow. And then it collects all the results and everything you did in the runs tab. You see here we have summarized 2 times because we run it again, and here it's much shorter because it has much less output. Let's see how it works if I click here. Yeah. So we can see all the details about the run. Actually pretty similar to other tools in that space, like LangFuse or Langsmith. Something you can see the results, inputs, outputs.
You also keep track of like number of tokens and price?
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Not yet.
But this is something you plan to add, right?
Yeah. I mean, the point is, yeah. This is planned. It's just not implemented yet.
So if somebody wants to contribute, that could be a good
that could be a good entry point, actually. And it's also October, so Hacktoberfest could be something. Yeah, but that would be a good entry point, for example. And I mean, I show the evaluation later. So I mean, there's a simple interface where you can just compare the runs, see how it comes out. Yeah, you can see just pick something and see the difference given your prompt.
Oh, that's cool.
Oop. And then we also have the prompt repository, which basically stores all your prompts and the number of versions of your prompts. So we worked with the summarize facts prompt now. We edited this from the latest version. We changed and then now this is a new version. And yeah, and if it's active, then this is the prompt that is used in the API. So if you run the Promptmage and you have the API running, this prompt of the prompt version 16 is not used at the moment in the API. It's just used in the playground, but the number 15 is used. So that's like kind of setting it to production or something, if you want to use that term there.
How do I use it then? Like, let's say I have an app that, I don't know, simple web application that needs to do something. So then I use Promptmage as a microservice, right? As another API, right? So I just make a call saying, hey, like this is the input, this is the graph I want to execute. Give me the results, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, this can also be then used for logging. So yeah, I have to draw a proper diagram of how it would look like in a larger production setting. I mean, this is now the local approach, right?
But you
But I
probably
can,
have some documentation, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So this is the prompt repository, and then the last thing is for evaluation, and this is probably the roughest edge right now, is you can create data sets from your runs, and then you look into the data sets and you can, this is also a bit scrambled, but then you can go into the different runs and rate them if you are happy with
Huh.
the output or the input, and you can share that also with domain expert and people who know if what it should be. And of course, you can also download the whole thing, the whole data set with all the metadata as a JSON lines object that you can use for fine tuning or further evaluation.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. And right now, I think you don't support image pictures as input, right? Only text.
no, right now, and it's actually also not directly planned because I mean it could be done, but it's not on the roadmap yet. But it could actually
Okay.
be done.
Well, technically, I maybe can insert URL, right?
Yeah, I mean you
By
can do
something
yeah.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean you could do everything actually. Um, yeah, I mean these steps in these steps everything can happen, right? It's just difficult to manage the files like the image files right now. But of course you could I
Because you
mean
also want to display them, right? And for like debugging and stuff.
yeah, I mean, displaying should be possible, but storing them directly might be
Yeah, right.
difficult
'Cause,
at the moment.
I recently made a small application where you get a picture, you give a picture, and then it creates a story based on the picture. And there are quite a few steps. So right now, for me, it's just a Python file. And the steps are like first you create a story based on the picture, then the next step is editing the story, then the next step is creating an audio file, and then there's another step is creating an illustration for that story, right? So there are quite a few steps. And I think a tool like that would be pretty handy for that. Because right now it's just a big Python script with a lot of mess, no version control for prompt. And like it's just okay, I change prompt and keep my fingers crossed that it does not fall apart. So a tool like that would come in quite handy.
True. Yeah. So maybe I add it to the roadmap. Actually, it would be probably useful. I mean the vision models. I haven't worked too much with the vision language models, to be honest. So that was not my
Like the
pain so
same.
far.
Instead of text, you just give it either a base 64 encoded image or URL, and the rest is the same.
I see. I mean, it wasn't just my pain yet. So,
Yeah,
I mean, the tool
because
is
you
coming from
focus
my
more with
pain.
on NLP rather than
Oh, sorry?
images. You focus more on NLP rather than images.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But still, it might be possible to do that straightforward here.
That
Um, so I guess there are two things we could talk also about now. There's like one roadmap ideas and what is planned to do
yeah.
there. And the other thing would be like how to run it in a more like in a larger environment and a team,
Yeah.
probably. Because this is like local on my machine, right?
Hmm.
So I don't share any prompts with anyone here, and it's all in a local database. It's probably not something you want to do with a team. So there's the option to run the whole backend as a remote server. Um, and then also this frontend, if you run it locally, still communicates all data prompts like with this remote backend. And that you can also run that through the terminal. Um, it's right now called Promptmage serve, but this is just if you run that somewhere, then you get like a server and you connect your Promptmage instance to that server by the remote URL. Um, and then it is stored in whatever database is configured here. I mean, by default, it's also doing an SQLite database. If you don't don't have too much traffic, it's fine for you, right? Otherwise, you can use a Postgres database. Um, and then yeah, and then you can interact with the remote thing and make your calls there and share prompts with other team members and iterate there. And especially interesting, it's for like if you want to share it with domain experts, which would be part of the roadmap to have a dedicated evaluation mode where you can share like, okay, I don't want people to see the runs, for example, or to see the prompts or to interact with the flow, but just have like an easy entry point to evaluate something for me in a safe way in this dedicated environment. Um, and also like automated evaluations, like using LLM as a judge approaches directly built in the tool so that you can say, like, oh, I have this data set prepared. I want to run um, an LLM as a judge approach because I expect it to perform well there and get some estimate of how I'm doing. Um, yeah.
Yeah, deciding an LLM as a judge, I think, because so far this is what I've been doing. Because I didn't have such a nice interface for evaluation, so it was mostly, hey, let's just use LLM as a judge.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, depends on the use case. You cannot justify having too many people evaluating this regularly, right? So you want to probably, what I'm doing, for example, is like you have LLM as a judge and you do one or two evaluation rounds with people, with domain experts, and then you try to estimate like the correlation between LLM as a judge and your domain experts evaluation, and then you can go on with
Ah,
LLM
that's
as a
pretty
judge
cool.
because you know the error range kind of.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
And right now it's just you working on that, or there are some other people.
right now it's just me, yeah. I mean, there's some people contributing on GitHub,
Hmm.
but the main work is done by me right now. Yeah.
Hmm. And if somebody wants to contribute, how do they go about that?
I mean, they can either write me a message, write me an email or something, or they can just open a pull request.
Mm-hmm.
There's documentation for that on GitHub. I mean, it's also improving the developer guide, but yeah, can just
Hmm.
look at the
How do
roadmap. The
you,
roadmap is
yeah.
public.
Hmm.
The um, contribution guide is public, and um, yeah, I'm happy about pull requests
Hmm.
or issues,
Well,
also issues.
um, I'm just thinking, so I also have a few open source projects, and sometimes when people create pull requests and it's like, I don't know, 100,000 changes, and then I just have no idea what's happening there. Sometimes it's also probably a good idea to just create an issue or write an existing issue what your plans are. So then I kind of always feel bad when I don't accept a pull request and just let it be
Yeah, true.
there. Yeah. You don't have like a Slack or anything like that yet. It's just
No,
GitHub, right? But I
yeah,
guess
right now
GitHub
it's
issues
just,
is enough.
yeah, I guess it will also stay on GitHub. So depending on how it develops, there might be a Discord or something at some point. But for now, also GitHub discussions
Mm-hmm.
works quite well for other projects I'm doing. So I guess it will stay there for a while to keep everything
Mm-hmm.
at one place. But yeah, I agree. Opening an issue before making a large pull request is definitely helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
that
do you have open issues currently? Or first good issues? Or I don't know if somebody is taking part in
no,
Oktoberfest and want to
no,
contribute. Okay.
not yet.
So
But
they just need to
I
ping you.
could add some. Yeah.
Hmm. And what's the best way to reach you?
Best way is usually email. So
Email.
there's like the email address on the GitHub,
Okay.
promptmage at tobiassterbak.com,
Mhm.
where you
Okay, so
can
if
reach me
somebody
personally.
wants, they will find it on GitHub in the
Yeah,
repo.
everything is on GitHub on the
Mhm.
website.
Okay. Can you show us how to give you a star? Your project a star?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you go to the Promptmage repository and then you press the
Yeah.
star button here.
Yeah, we need
I'll do
all of
it.
us should just go there and give a star. We need to have more stars.
Yeah, of course. Um, I would be happy about more stars. And if you have interesting use cases, then let me know. If you have something missing, let me know in an issue. Um, I'm happy
Yeah,
to develop this further. It hopes it fixes my pain. So
Mhm.
I hope it also fixes the pain of other people.
You have an open pull request, right?
Yeah, this is just my default pull request. It's always open for the next release to bundle
Uh-huh.
everything.
Okay,
So
that's cool.
yeah, I have
So,
new stuff coming.
do you have any advice for anyone who is watching this?
Any advice?
Yeah, life advice, programming advice, NLP advice, LLM advice, relationship advice.
Even though okay, fair. I mean, even though I'm building an LLM project thingy, I mean, think about if you really need LLMs for everything.
Mhm.
That would be probably my
Uh,
advice.
okay.
Um,
What are the cases when we don't really need an LLM? In your practice, like you probably come across these situations when somebody says, "Hey, let's just use LLM," and then it's not always the right approach. So, can you think from the top of your mind, like what are the good examples when we don't need an LLM?
there are a lot of cases, and I mean, it hasn't changed since the classical machine learning days, but in NLP, there are a lot of like pretty not so difficult classification tasks, or especially classification tasks where you want like a um, high true positive rate, but low false positive rate. So you want high precision, but you can deal with lower recall. And then like their keyword-based approaches are pretty strong in
Mhm.
my experience. So
Like sentiment analysis, this kind of stuff, right?
yeah, sentiment analysis or just like basic topic modeling. If you know there's like broad topics, depends on what you're interested in. Um, this can be pretty strong. And then like the whole area of like so vector search, like everyone is really hot about vector search. And I believe in a lot of cases, like also for RAG systems, like BM25 is really good, and you get away with a lot less trouble setting it up, processing it, keeping it up to date. If you just have a normal um, search database, and at least for the first iteration, this is usually fine. If you don't have strong evidence or strong reasons to say like, oh, I definitely need like complex semantic retrieval stuff, and I know it will work also fine, and the false positive rate will not be crazy high because everything kind of looks semantically related. And then it's also much easier to control if you are using keyword-based approaches,
Mhm.
right? Um, so I guess this is like, and then from this, all kinds of similarity-based tasks. It's like, do you really need deep neural network vector embedding based approaches, or are you good with keyword based or like whatever fuzzy matching based approaches?
Amazing. Okay, thank you, Tobias, for the demo, for sharing your plans with us, for making it open source, and for your advice too. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thank you a lot for having me.